The show that has become the lowest rated animated TV series of all time has taken that title for a reason. The art style isn't the nicest on the eye, it's quite hard to watch, it lacks true identity in terms of what it's trying to achieve, and most of the jokes just don't really land. However, despite the fact that I've said in previous videos that this show isn't that great, there is one thing that I think is bearable in this show and provides a moment where you can almost forget which universe you're in. So with that, I thought I'd break down, explain, and discuss what I think the only good thing in this show is. So let's get into it. Here is the one good thing in Velma. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Velma seems to be on track to become the worst TV show in history, and it's already made its mark as the worst animated TV show of all time. Taking the much-loved Scooby-Doo IP and turning something that many people grew up with into an adult animation which has adopted a style of comedy from the late 2000s and 2010s, it's provided dated humor in a market that has already provided shows that can do what it's offering but better. With the likes of Big Mouth, which is already starting to feel as though it's had its day, Family Guy, South Park, Brickleberry, F is for Family, Paradise PD, and many others that have been released over the course of the past few decades, it seems as though Velma has decided to jump on the bandwagon a few years too late, and it definitely shows. With its use of below-the-belt humor which can feel cheap and like it lacks intelligence, visual gags which are edgy but not edgy enough to cut through because we've seen far worse, and the feeling like it needs to throw a joke in every other line of dialogue, it became clear to see from the off that it was going to be a tough watch. Not only because of the jokes, but because of the two-dimensional nature of the characters, where they've taken one main thing about them and honed in on it, despite these traits not even being main characteristics of the characters in the original show. And let's not forget the lack of Scooby-Doo. But amongst all of this, I'd say there's one thing that I haven't minded that much in the show. And whilst I wouldn't say it vastly improves the show in any way whatsoever and stops it from being the worst animation of all time, I'd say it's the only time where I'm not thinking what on earth is going on. Well, I might be, just a little less. And this is the character Norville. I know this is most probably going to be quite controversial, but I would genuinely say that the character Norville is one of the only okay things in the show. Let me explain why. When we look at all of the main characters that we've had in the show so far, Velma, Daphne, and Fred, they all resemble the character that was in the original show in some way. But what they've done with these characters is they've taken one thing that made up the makeup of them. For example, Fred's good looks, but they've contrasted it with the inability to do anything. They've taken Daphne's good looks, but provided her with a mean girl attitude, and then they've taken Velma's dorkiness. But what they've done is they've amplified it even more and made them only have that one specific thing to offer, making it the only thing that the character is memorable for. Whereas with Norville, what they've done is they've created a character that doesn't resemble what Shaggy was like as a person at all. In the original shows, Shaggy was this laid-back guy who was a bit stupid and loved hanging out with Scoob eating Scooby snacks, whereas Norville isn't like that at all. He comes across as quite an intelligent guy, has feelings for Velma, so there's complex, which I don't actually think is even needed for the character, to be honest. But what happens when they meet is there's a sense of real conversation that becomes present, something that the rest of the show lacks. As well as that, I think Norville's gags tend to be the most humorous out of the ones that the show has offered. For example, the therapist cardigan gag, where it made everybody want to open up to him, was the only thing that I found not too bad in the show so far. Norville seems like the only real character in the show, and I think that comes down to the fact that he's the only character that isn't trying to resemble a former iteration of themselves. They've taken the outfit and that's it. Whereas Fred, Daphne and Velma are all leaning in on one thing that the previous character had and are trying to make it their entire personality, which just doesn't work, nor does it fulfill its purpose, because these characters had far more depth than what this show is trying to make out. But with Norville, because they haven't tried to do that, the character doesn't cause frustration every time a word gets uttered. It's going to be interesting to see how the character develops, seeing as though it looks as though he's going to be getting a new love interest in the show, which is Gigi. I just hope that the one okay thing about this show doesn't get ruined, and the character that has some sense of originality about it doesn't fall victim to the way that the rest of the show has unfolded. Time will tell, and whilst Norville doesn't make the show far better than what it actually is, it provides something, which at this point is better than nothing. I would say that there is actually one other thing that this show does have, but it doesn't utilize that much, and that's the art style and animation when Velma has her hallucinations. As I mentioned, the show lacks any real originality or identity, and I feel if they'd leaned in more on the interesting, creepy art style that they use for the hallucinations, then at least there could have been something that was pushing boundaries a bit more, instead of just providing this kind of cheap webtoon look, and also relying on the IP in order to sell the show. But hey, we'll see how the rest of the episodes unfold. So, there you have it, the one good thing in Velma, and that's Norville. If you want to see more videos such as endings explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns, then click on the I button. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. Do you think there's anything good in this show? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.